Once upon a time there was a miller with his beautiful daughter. He really wanted to get rich, so he did nothing but lie to others. The people did not like this, and they complained about the miller to the young king. The king decided to teach the miller a lesson and called him to the castle. Introducing himself to the king, the miller told about his beautiful daughter. He lied that she knew how to turn straw into threads of gold. The king asked the miller's daughter to come to the castle the next day and show everyone her abilities. When the father told his daughter about this, she was furious that he had lied again. The next day they went to the castle. The king led the girl into a room in which a spinning wheel and a basket of straw were prepared. The king ordered that by dawn all the straw turns to gold, and if she fails, then her father will be punished for deception. The girl looked at the straw and cried bitterly. Suddenly, the room lit up with light, and a small man appeared in the middle of it. The midget asked why she was crying. The girl told him everything. The little man offered to help, but in return he asked for a necklace that hung around the girl's neck. She agreed, and the dwarf set to work. As soon as he turned all the straw into gold, the little man disappeared as suddenly as he appeared. Morning has come. The king entered the room and was amazed at what he saw.
Cool.
The girl was happy. But instead of letting her go, the king brought in more straw. He ordered to turn it into gold by morning. The girl began to cry again. But then the dwarf appeared before her again. This time he asked in return for a precious ring that her mother had given the girl. The dwarf took the ring and began to spin straw. By morning the baskets were full of gold. When the king entered the room, he was very pleased.
Cool.
But instead of letting go of the girl, this time he filled the whole room with straw. The king ordered all the straw to turn to gold by dawn. In return, he promised to pardon his father and make her queen. As soon as the king left the room, the dwarf appeared again. But this time, the girl couldn't give him anything. And then the little man said that he would turn the straw into gold if in return the future queen would give her child, who would be born. The girl saw no other way out, and therefore accepted his offer. When morning came, the king saw gold and was very happy. This time he kept his promise. He freed the girl's father and made her his wife. So the miller's daughter became queen. After a while, her child was born. And one day, when the girl was putting him to bed, a little man appeared. He warned that he would take the child in 3 days if the queen did not find out the dwarf's name. As soon as the little man disappeared, the girl asked the servants to make a list of all the names in the kingdom. By morning the servants brought the list. When the dwarf appeared, he asked the queen what his name was. She began to read all the names on the list one by one. When the queen had finished, the little man said that none of the names fit. And he disappeared. The girl asked the servants to make a list of all the names in the neighboring kingdoms. By morning, the servants had written on a piece of paper all the names they found. When the dwarf appeared, he asked the queen what his name was. She began to read all the names on the list one by one. But there was no right one among them. And the little man disappeared. The queen asked the servants to visit all known countries and collect as many names as possible. At dawn, a servant told the queen that he had seen an unusual situation the night before. Walking through the woods, he came across a small house. In the courtyard near the fire, some dwarfs sang a song that tomorrow the queen's child would finally be his. And at the same time joyfully shouted out his name. His name was Rumpelstiltskin. When morning came, the dwarf appeared again. He asked the queen what his name was. The girl pretended not to know his name and began to read the names from the list. With each new wrong answer of the queen, the little man became more and more joyful. Finally, the girl uttered his name. And at the same moment, the ground under the feet of the dwarf crackled, and he fell into a huge hole. So the queen got rid of the greedy little man. Later, she told the king about everything. He saw that the queen was sorry for what had happened and forgave her.
Okay.
Since then, they have lived happily ever after. Once upon a time, a cunning and narcissistic fox lived in a dense forest. She deceived everyone, so none of the animals trusted her and did not want to be friends with her. Soon the fox got tired of being alone, and she invited her neighbor crane to dinner. At first, the crane refused, remembering that the fox cannot be trusted. But the fox convinced him, saying that except for him, none of the animals wants to be friends with her. And most importantly, the fox invited him to become best friends. Crane was glad of this invitation, and after a while went to visit. The fox's soup was very aromatic. After setting the table, she sprinkled the food into large plates. The fox invited the crane to the table, and began to eat her soup with pleasure. But the crane couldn't taste it out of such a flat dish. He unsuccessfully banged his beak on the plate, and in the end remained hungry. The crane was upset, thinking that the fox was very inattentive to him. But he was a guest at her house, so he did not say anything about his resentment. Meanwhile, the fox finished the soup to the last drop. Seeing that the crane was about to leave, she asked in disbelief if he liked the dinner.
No.
The crane politely said goodbye, and went home hungry and upset.
Okay.
After a while, the crane decided to teach the fox a good lesson. He went to his girlfriend, and politely invited her to dinner. Lisa was very happy with the offer and agreed. Having prepared dinner, the crane took out 2 tall and narrow jugs for himself and the fox. He set the table, and put the food in the jugs. By this time the fox had come. She was very hungry. The crane invited the guests to the table, and the friends proceeded to dinner. The fox tried to eat from a narrow jug, but nothing came of it, because the vessel was too narrow. Meanwhile, the crane ate with ease with its long beak. When he finished, he saw the fox trying unsuccessfully to eat. Crane asked if she liked the dinner. But the fox replied that she could not eat anything due to the fact that the jug was too narrow and long. The crane was expecting a similar answer. He reminded the fox that he had left her house hungry because the plate was too flat. And then she realized her mistake. She felt ashamed that she was so inattentive to her neighbor. Lisa apologized and said that she could not even think that he would not be able to eat from such a plate. Crane forgave her and said that henceforth they need to remember their differences. Having said this, he brought a large plate from which the guest could easily eat her dinner. When it was time to say goodbye, the fox got an idea. She asked the crane to take one of his jugs to his home, so that he could easily dine with the fox. The neighbor liked this idea. He praised the fox, saying that if she uses her cunning and ingenuity for good deeds, she will have many friends. The fox and the crane laughed merrily. They have been best friends ever since. After some time, the crane came to say goodbye to its neighbor before heading to warmer lands. Left alone, the fox got bored. But she never forgot the words of the crane. Since then, the fox stopped thinking only about herself, and found real friends among other animals in the forest.